Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nelson's Corner, Episode 5, with your host, Mr. Nelson LeKay. Nelson!
Hey.
Hey! And Zach Parrish.
Hey, everyone!
And myself, Jason Busby. Tonight, Mr. Nelson is going to be walking Zach through a little bit of ReSharper. Nelson's been using ReSharper quite a bit in, well, all of the episodes of Nelson's Corner so far, and Zach has made some mild complaints here and there about the sound of rapid-fire clicks from Nelson's end and tons of code magically appearing or suddenly just completely shifting and changing as if Nelson could type at about 1 million keys a second.
It's like a bunch of macros.
So, yeah, and there's also been some people online at 3D Buzz that have also asked some questions about ReSharper. And so Nelson thought it would be a good idea to spend just a little bit of time going over some of the features that he uses most often with ReSharper. Can't go over everything. This video would be a very long video.
Oh, yeah, and tonight's video is not brought to you by the makers of ReSharper.
Yeah. No, it's brought to you by Nelson. So, Nelson, if you want to finish with the introduction, I think that's a good start.
Yeah, I'm really not an expert in ReSharper, but once you know what it can do, and especially some of the keyboard shortcuts, it will definitely save you a lot of time. So that's just kind of why I wanted to make this video for people who are interested in trying it out, but it really feels alien to them, as it did me before I really learned all the keyboard shortcuts and what exactly you can do with it.
Well, starting simply, what is ReSharper?
Well, ReSharper is a add-on for Visual Studio that includes a bunch of tools that edit your code.
Edited in what way?
All sorts of ways.
In lots of ways.
Pretty much, if you can think of an automated task, then it probably can be done with ReSharper.
So, I mean, is this kind of like a replacement for IntelliSense?
They have that too.
They do have that. Jason seems to like that one more. I personally don't. I use Visual Studio's IntelliSense, but the thing about ReSharper is that it understands your code and it understands C#, and it reads your code and tries to figure it out in order to be able to rewrite it in a way that makes sense. And it also pays attention to your conventions. So I guess probably the first thing that you'd want to do when you install ReSharper is go ahead and open up the options and edit your naming styles and your formatting styles. And these are really, really... They're just pretty amazing how far you can edit how it's going to generate these things. For example, one of the conventions that I personally use in my...
which, for the record, is the default way that ReSharper ships. I've changed it here to match the .NET convention.
I'll give it a underscore name prefix and then upper camel case. And so that's just an example of how you can change the conventions, and I'll clear that out so Jason doesn't kill me. And then we have braces, blank lines, line breaks, spaces, just pretty much anything that you could quantify about your formatting style can be expressed in this option dialog.
Now, once you establish these, as you type, does ReSharper just fix them for you?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, the thing about ReSharper is it usually asks you first.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. I'll create a class up here.
And I'd like to point out we can already see it at work real quickly. If we take a look over here, if you want to talk about this, Nelson.
Oh, this little guy?
The little guy up in the upper right corner.
This will highlight errors in your source code.
Oh, cool.
And then gives you little ticks that you can click on to jump to that part in your code.
And not only will it highlight errors, it'll also highlight instances where you
break your convention?
Mm-hmm.
It also highlights that by, you see the little warning right there. And then you have this, and you select this, and then you go over here, and you have a bunch of options. You can rename to it matching your conventions. You can remove, well, that's a different thing. Another thing is every single ReSharper error or warning or info can be suppressed at 2 different levels. You can either suppress it with a comment, with this, and these comments are file-wide. Okay. So I can go ahead and if I wanted to ignore this for just this file, I would go ahead and put it at the top.
Okay.
The next way you can ignore it is by changing the settings, and that's not where I wanted to go. It's by maybe this one doesn't have it. Yeah, I guess not. Most of them have a edit which severity these come from. Okay. And let me check something real fast. Wonder what it'll be. I just gotta make sure that I'm on the version that I'm familiar with. Just real quick. 5.0. Okay, sweet. So that's the latest version. It is made by JetBrains, so if you would just head over to jetbrains.com, you'll get it. So yeah, so that's one of the features of ReSharper. Now, the first thing you need to know is when you see a squiggly, and you know that squiggly is coming from ReSharper, the first thing that you do is you hit Alt-Enter.
And that just keeps you from going over to the left-hand side and clicking on that drop-down.
Gotcha.
Alt-Enter will become your best friend with 99% of the changes you're going to do when ReSharper's wanting to tell you something.
All right. It's just a way to kind of bring that window up.
Yep.
All right.
The next thing is the right-click refactor menu, which is provided by ReSharper. And I don't really use this very often because I use these shortcuts most of the time. The biggest one that I use is the refactor this. So I'll just give you the shortcut.
Well, hang on, just real quick. I mean, I've heard the term refactoring, but generally speaking, what is refactoring?
Refactoring is editing your code so that it's functionally equivalent to what you had before, but it's organized in a better way.
Okay.
That's the essence of refactoring, is doing code that doesn't actually give you any more features, but makes your code cleaner, more maintainable, and better or faster or whatever.
Fixing your code.
Yes. But you can refactor code that's not broken.
Right. Okay.
Is kind of what I'm saying. So the refactor this shortcut is Control-Shift-R. And that brings up Jason's resource view. There we go. I hit the wrong key. Okay, so Control-Shift-R.
I was wondering because I was like, but it works for me.
Well, Nelson has an unlabeled keyboard. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
If I'm typing, it's fine, but when I'm searching for an individual letter, sometimes it's a challenge. But anyway, so Control-Shift-R, we have the refactor this menu, and we can do a bunch of stuff. We can rename it. We can
and even with renaming, it might not be a bad idea to put I was just going to say put that guy in use just so.
I was going to say
see.
if it's referenced someplace.
That was a poor example.
You're okay.
I don't have system. Okay, next feature of ReSharper that you've already seen me use is
that reminds me
is Control or Alt-Enter on a class that you know exists but isn't currently imported with using statements at the top of the file. So that's just Alt-Enter, and you get that.
Gotcha. So it'll drop your using statement in automatically. It looked like in previous videos when I've watched you do this, it also keeps them nicely in alphabetical order too.
Yeah, it does a really good job at that. But anyway, so we have right line, and then hey there. And then this is kind of the reason why I don't like this.
Just hit escape if it's in the way.
Yeah, what is it complaining about? Okay,
so much yellow.
You can ignore that one. So Control-Shift-R, we can rename. And alternative to Control-Shift-R, because I rename a lot, Control-R-R.
Okay.
So that's two key combinations. It's called a chord in Visual Studio. But Control-R-R will bring up the rename menu.
And of course, when you rename that field, it's also going to change it down there where you use it in the right line as well. Oh, yeah, very cool.
And you want to see another cool feature? Two more cool features. I mean, when I came into this video, I was like, what am I going to show? But I just kind of realized I use this so much that's like second nature.
This video is not brought to you by the makers of ReSharper.
Okay, first one, if you have these little token guys in there, that part of the string, part of a literal string, if you hit Control Enter, you'll get surround with string.format or split string. Split string is really cool. Split string just splits it. But usually I do the opposite of that, which if you have a split string, you know, two strings concatenated by a plus operator, you can join strings.
Nice.
And then once you join strings, once it detects that there's a little token in there, we can surround with string.format.
Now, does it do that that splitting based on where the cursor is? Is that what I saw?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I wanted to do that, it would go like that.
Gotcha.
And then string.format we've already covered. This token 0 will be replaced by the first argument we pass in. Okay, so here's another really cool feature about the rename. So I'm going to hit Control-RR again, and I'm going to say something else. And watch this. It totally failed because... Did I misspell that?
Did it fail?
Yeah, I think I did fail.
No, you didn't check the checkbox if you're wanting to show what I think you want to show.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yep.
see, it saves this on my machine, and I have this set up. I just forgot about it. Search in comments and string literals. You'll always want this checked because you never know when you hard-coded something in, like a variable name or something. It happens all the time, and it's terrible practice. Whatever, it'll happen, and you want this on all the time.
Sure. And I
So now we
imagine
get-
that'll change the string too.
No, it asks you if you want to change a string. So so we can go ahead and select this, and if you're a keyboard junkie, you can just use the cursor keys to go up and down, and then spacebar to select, and then Alt-N to go next.
If I had your keyboard, I would definitely be a keyboard junkie.
So just to go over that again.
And it really is important to keep that in mind. I know when we were working on the MMO, of course, I would use this quite often. And when you start having hundreds and hundreds of files, and you've got something that's being used across all of these files, there may be areas that got commented out by somebody else temporarily that you may plan to uncomment at some point, and then you don't want your naming to end up being different in that section
Right. Well, that
of
could
code.
break all kinds of things.
That or even just the fact that you could throw comments in there talking about some of these things. You want the names to
You want
always
everything to remain consistent.
stay in sync. That's right.
And hit spacebar to select. And if anyone didn't catch it, do you guys know about accelerator keys?
No.
Have you ever held down Alt in a Windows application
And you
and
get
watched
the
those
little. Go ahead.
those little underline guys go under these buttons and stuff? You
Yeah.
see every control
Oh, sure,
label,
sure. Yeah.
and then while I'm holding it on Alt, I can hit N, and that'll go next. So that's if you want to do this completely 100% keyboard, that's the fastest way to do it.
I didn't know they were called accelerator keys.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to Control-Shift-R this, and then there is the Save Delete, which will fail because we're using it.
Gotcha. So it
And-
basically tells you you're making use of this and you shouldn't be deleting it.
Right. And then it continued to do it because I told it to, but it let me know that I was doing something dumb. And one other thing, one of the other things, you notice that when that got deleted, this guy's now red.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows up, in here. He shows up everywhere. It's just completely bold red text, or not bold, but red text. And the cool thing about ReSharper is ReSharper will write code for you. So let's say I just wanted to start typing a variable name. And ignore the code completion. So it comes up with red, and I want this variable name to appear somewhere. Alt-Enter. We can create a local variable, create a parameter in the containing method, create a field, create a property, create a read-only property,
Wow.
and then we can change all local. And that's really cool because let's say we do let's say we realize that this was a misspelling or something, and we want to change all the instances of this to something else. Let's say we realize that this is an incorrectly spelled variable name reference. So we hit Alt-Enter, go down to change all local avars, and then we start typing in avar2.
Killer.
Which you'll notice it also suggested avar2.
Yeah,
up
it did.
underneath
I
as
saw
well.
Oh yeah. That's another great thing about Visual or ReSharper is that it will try to guess variable names for you. Or I don't know. So let's go.
This is kind of like having a very, very patient programmer sitting over your shoulder helping you out at all times.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to control R this guy, and let's do, I don't know. Whoa.
Thank you, Nelson. Your spelling is awesome.
No, his keyboard is awesome.
Those two keys are too close together.
I see that.
Okay. Anyway, so as we start typing it, it'll identify words in our symbol. No matter, I mean, we're editing class name right now, but we could be renaming a method call or a method or a variable or whatever, and it will try to suggest stuff as we type. You know, and it'll do that based off the camel casing of it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so we have this, and let's do something cool here. And you see that ReSharper is telling me that these files or these classes exist, but they're not being referenced yet. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Enter, Alt Enter, and get file info. And then I'm going to do something kind of dumb. I'm going to do this like you shouldn't. Why doesn't it like that? Because I have to do new file info. So Zach, what's wrong with this code?
Well,
Besides the little squiggly there.
yeah, besides a little squiggly, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm not sure yet. I mean,
Well,
go ahead, please.
I mean, we went over a link a few episodes ago, and this problem can be easily solved in Link in one line of code.
Oh, is that a problem in the code then?
Oh yeah, that's a huge problem.
Okay.
And ReSharper will let us know about it.
Ah,
So it says convert into Link expression.
nice.
Yeah.
You don't even have to know how to write Link.
Nope. And this is also a good way to learn Link. If you install ReSharper and start typing out your code, and then it says this can be converted, go ahead and do it. I want to warn you, though, sometimes it will produce an unreadable blob of code. And you'll have to have your own discretion at that point as to whether or not you want to keep it that way. But in this case, I mean, this refactoring saved us a bunch of code and is just as readable.
Sure.
So that's the first thing. Next thing is because we're all awesome people, we never reference the service layer with concrete references to classes. So we're going to have to refactor this into an interface. And I know that we haven't really gone over interfaces yet, Zach. So I feel kind of bad about showing this, but
That's okay. It's something that I can just keep in the back of my head until we actually discuss them.
But you can give them a very quick what an interface is.
an interface is a contract that a class provides for its public-facing members
All right.
without providing implementation. The idea is that multiple concrete classes can provide the same interface and be swapped out at runtime or compile time or what have you. So that's just the quick thing about interfaces. But the problem with this is that we're referencing a concrete implementation of a file system service, and we generally want our service layer to be abstract in interfaces so that it will work nicely with inversion of control libraries, which we'll definitely get into in the ASP.NET videos. But anyway, what our goal is to create an interface that represents this public contract, and in this case, the contract literally is get file info and dir that takes a string and returns an IEnumerable file info. So that's the contract of this class, and we want to abstract that into an interface that we can reuse multiple times. So to do that, Alt-Enter, or no, it's Control-Shift-R, extract interface. My mouse just flew over there. Okay, extract interface, and that gives us a nice dialog box. if you want to expose all public members of this interface or of this class into the interface, just hold down Alt, hit P, or hold on, launch just came up on my local computer. Hold down Alt, hit P to hit this all public button that will in turn select all public members, and then just hit N. Do you kind of follow?
Very generally, without having a whole lot of info on the syntax or the creation of interfaces, I do see what was just done.
Okay. And we can go back down as well. So Control-Shift-R, we want to... where is this guy?
Convert interface to abstract.
Well, we can push members down if we go and add new...
Yeah, I think you have to just type this out. I've never actually tried to do that, but... Okay, so now we're inheriting a class from an interface, and we have to provide this method in this class because it is now implementing this interface. And we can do that by just typing in code and then telling ReSharper to implement members.
Okay.
I don't know. Hold on. Yeah, this... took way longer to write than it should have. Okay. So let's say we want to change this interface. We're kind of bored with it. So we have two classes that implement it. We're kind of bored with it. We want it to do something different.
Well,
or
actually,
something more.
Yeah, let's do something more.
Yeah. So...
That makes it an exciting
Wow.
interface.
Yeah, never add... I mean, obviously say hi, while it might be valid code, has no relationship to file system. So you probably don't want to do this in production code. Anyway,
But the
so
first thing to note, real quick, is you'll notice how both the classes
Got a
that
red
inherit
squiggly
from the
under 'em.
interface both have the red squigglies now.
Yep. And
So
we also get...
they no longer meet the contract.
That's right.
Exactly. So then we get this little doohickey right here, which we can also invoke with Alt-Enter, implement members and derived classes, and we can select which type we want to. So in this case, all above types, and bam.
Nelson just pretty much demonstrated why he's so awesome, because he's so hardcore about all of these terminology uses. And we're like, yeah, these are acceleration keys that allow us to do this, that, and the other. And then we switch things up at random and be like, now this doohickey over here. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyhow.
He was not impressed by your humor.
I realize this.
So say hi is pretty worthless. It's a void function that takes no arguments, so it's not going to probably do anything that we really want it to do. So let's give it some stuff. Let's change this contract up a little bit. Let's say it returns a string. And when we change it to string, we get these little squigglies saying these method bodies no longer fulfill the contract. And we also get this guy over here, which can be invoked with Alt-Enter, saying apply change signature refactoring. And I love this guy. I'm actually going to give you a better demonstration of what this can do. I'm actually not going to use implicit typing in this case. And this is one of the few times I won't use implicit typing, but that's because I want a reference to this variable. There's three ways to do this, and I'm not going to really go into the three ways. I'm just going to do it. Sorry about that little tangent, but
Don't worry about it.
okay, so just kind of ignore that. That's whatever. So now we have this stuff, and we want stuff to say hi. And we want to actually give it this. And if we run it, we should get hi. And that should go away. Okay, so we kind of realize that printing directly to the console inside the service layer is kind of lame, and we instead want to encapsulate the view logic of this elsewhere. So we decided that instead of say hi printing directly what it's going to say, we want it to return whatever we want it to say. And in addition, we want it to take a name because, I mean, that'll make it more robust and stuff. So to do that, we want to change this into a string. So say hi now returns the string instead of doing stuff. and then it also takes a string called name. And so it's going to say hi to whoever that is. And now we get the squigglies again, and we also get this guy, and we can hit Alt-Enter and implement members and drive classes, and it didn't... You have to type it in a certain order for it to pick up this particular refactoring, but this particular refactoring is really cool. So I'm going to do the string first. I'm going to apply change signature refactoring, and it gives us kind of a diagram of what it's going to do.
That's cool.
And then you see it changed that and changed that. But that didn't actually change the call site at all. It's still just doing that.
Sure.
But this is now invalid because it's not actually returning anything, but we'll deal with that in a second. So now we want it to take a string of name. And now we get a different guy. We get an actual refactoring guy. And we'll apply change signature refactoring again. And watch what it does.
Oh, wow.
It identifies that we are adding a string name parameter to it. And not only will it actually type that in here, which is kind of simple, but it'll also try to decide how to deal with it on every method call of that method that we're changing, which is really cool. So we can use null and we can use a default value. So we'll just say that. And so you see it added the name to these guys and those guys.
That's
and also
pretty cool.
Added that. So now we've decided that the construction of this stuff object should not be in our... I've never seen that before.
Hit escape? Oh, wow. I have not either.
I'm going to close this file and reopen it. Oh.
You're going to pin it first.
Okay, there it went away. That's why I don't use the IntelliSense that ReSharper provides. As much as I love ReSharper, the IntelliSense it's too much for me. Anyhow, we decided that this
it's too much awesome. Okay.
We decided that this construction shouldn't go in our main program because we have a bunch of stuff like that and that. And we kind of feel like having this sort of logic sandwiched in between this infrastructure garbage is kind of unreadable and annoying. So what we want to do is abstract all of this into a method. And to make it more impressive, I'm going to do this. Then in addition to that, I'm going to fix this so it no longer can actually change this method up. So it returns hi dash name. Okay, so we decided that this is boilerplate code we don't want to deal with. We want to just focus on the creation of the file system service and getting the response. So what we're going to do is select all of this code and hit Control-Shift-R, and we can extract method. And this is one of my favorite refactorings available to us. So we hit extract method, and we get this guy.
Oh, wow.
This guy will give us a preview of the method, and you see, this is really cool. I mean, if you just think about how much code went into being able to determine stuff like this, but it identifies...
I'm already freaked out that it knew to name it get response, actually.
Actually, hold on. I'm going to make this even more freaked out. I forgot to do this. Watch this. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Extract method.
Much better.
You see that? It identified that we were using a variable that wasn't part of what we wanted to extract it and added it to the parameters. Then it identified that we were using the value out of this method body outside of what we wanted to extract, and then it stuffed it in the response or the return value. So essentially, it's incredibly amazing.
You don't even need to know how to program.
So you hit next, and that's what it does.
So it replaces it, as you can see there, with a call to it, sending it in name.
And then it wrote the method down below.
And gets a response back.
And in addition, and I don't understand ReSharper, but when you do refactorings, it will not by default use implicit typing, but then it'll bug you about using implicit typing if you've set it to do that, which is the default behavior. I don't understand why, but whatever. So at this point, it's bugging us about using implicit typing, so we're going to use it. So Control or Alt-Enter, use var.
It's just making sure that you want to use it here, because even you have said you don't use it everywhere.
I'll get into those exceptions like in an entire video sometime.
That's all I'm saying. It's just giving you room to make those exceptions.
Okay. But that is a lot of cool stuff. But unfortunately...
Now, did you want to show pulling? If you want to add, like let's say you've got your two classes and you happen to be working down below on line 27 in file system service, and let's say you add another method down there, and this method now needs to be put into the interface.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then have it adjust everything else.
So you can go the other direction,
yeah.
Is what you're saying. You can change the contract, or you can add something and say, hey, add this to the contract.
Right.
You can renegotiate.
Oh, and by the way, this is a word.
As of now.
Added it to the dictionary.
Okay, so we can Control-Shift-R this, and we can pull up.
So you can pull members up, or you can push them down, and then you can also have it update everything, which is awesome.
Nice.
Which
Did
did that.
And it'll break whoever's not already
But
using that.
We can just fix that with another Alt-Enter.
He's just fixing it, but I will point out you could have selected.
You can have it go all in one run.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can have it do everything.
Well, it's cool to actually see it broken down into multiple steps, just so that you can see, get a quicker idea of everything that just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, pull members up. And that guy... What were we saying, Jason?
Do what
About being
now?
able to do this in one step?
Yeah, you can select members. Hang on, I know for a fact you can do it all in one step and have it adjust.
Let me go
everything.
next. Oh, no, it didn't.
I know for a fact with pull members up you can. All because I haven't been working on the MMO for a couple months now. I haven't touched it recently.
Yeah. And another quick thing, ReSharper likes to touch everything because it knows what's best for you. So you always want to make sure that this is checked so that if some weird, bizarre reason, this doesn't happen at all, but if some weird, bizarre reason that ReSharper edited a file that it shouldn't have and it screwed up, you won't be able to undo unless you check this. So,
Okay.
so you know. So, yeah. But what you can do, Jason, is if you can do them all at once, all the interfaces at once.
Yeah.
From this, so that's kind of like a
pushing.
easier two-step. But yeah, so the next thing is we are sick of all of these classes in the same file. So we want to go ahead and remove them. So we hit Alt-Enter on the interface, and we can hit Move File to a file that matches the same type name.
And this, yeah, I love that.
Oh, that's
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Especially when, because I was just going to throw this out real quick. I've sat in on several programming projects, and I understand because of the nature of training videos, you've got a lot of the code researched, and then you go over each part as you go. But a lot of those initial steps, at least when you're teaching somebody how to code something, are to start off by creating your base classes. And obviously, when you sit down and start coding, you don't always know exactly what all your base classes are going to be.
Right. And being able, this tool is built explicitly for that purpose.
Yeah.
To be able to quickly refactor those projects or
That's
those
really cool.
files.
Mm-hmm.
And one other cool thing that I love about ReSharper, I use it all the time, but unfortunately I haven't been able to show anyone because we've only had one file open. But check this out. Control, comma. This is my favorite. Control, comma will show you all of the recent files. In addition, you can start typing. And it'll filter them.
That's cool.
So this
File
is
jump.
a huge time saver if you like using your keyboard more than your mouse.
They've got a ton of navigation features built in.
Let me go ahead and dump these guys in other files to get a few more files up and running. And if you always want to go back to the previous file will always be selected when you do Control, comma. So just Control, comma, Enter will switch between the two files.
Kind of like Alt-Tab.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move this. And I think in the cleanup code you can do that all in one item, but I haven't played around with the cleanup code too much. So then I'm going to Control-Shift-S to save everything. And let's say that we like having our stuff organized properly, so we're going to make an abstract
As
namespace.
opposed to... never mind.
Yeah, just let it go.
This is kind of a convention that I have myself. I always make an abstract namespace above whatever namespace I'm working with to keep my interfaces kind of in the same place. It makes things more clean. I don't really like seeing the interface be dumped down below everything else just because the letter I is after whatever those letters are.
Right.
So let's go ahead and put that in there. And now there's a problem. And do you know what the problem is, Zach?
No, I really don't.
Okay, look at the squigglies.
Tell him to move his mouse over. ReSharper, I tell you.
Yeah, it's over on the console application, but
Let me give you my best, Zach. Well, yeah, Nelson, if you just move your mouse over, ReSharper's going to tell me.
Namespace does not correspond to file location.
I gotcha.
And the cool thing is you could do the refactoring right here. And that would be all cool and stuff. But when you have... Oh, your Control-W isn't mapped to close the file. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I guess we had to stop the video now.
Right-click on the tab.
On the tab?
Yeah.
It's like Nelson just left the room. He's done.
Don't...
So we're...
Okay, unless you wanted to close them all.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
When you're working on a project and you have a bunch of namespaces and you want to keep them... You want to try something out, try different organizational methods out, and it hasn't solidified to the point where you need to keep the same namespaces for everything. You might have a bunch of files that you're moving around and in your Solution Explorer, but you don't want to go into every single file and apply the refactoring to every single class or namespace. So to do that, you just open up your Solution Explorer, select a root level object, so that could be a folder or a project or an individual file or multiple files. In this case, I'm going to select abstract, pretend that I added 15 interfaces in this folder. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-R, and then I have adjust namespaces.
Yeah, that one's
which
also
will
cool.
Find every single instance where it needs to change the interface and tell me about it. I hit next. And now here's the cool thing. You notice how I have the to enable and do open all the files that you're editing with?
Mm-hmm.
It showed me all the files that it edited.
Right.
And you'll see it's not just this one file. Right?
Yeah.
Because when we change this namespace, these guys have to have a new using.
Right, they have to use it, right.
And it'll figure out which files use this particular class or interface, and it will add the proper using statements. And this will be a huge time saver if you're moving. Let's say you have 5 classes that are used everywhere in your project, and just moving them, and that refactoring alone will save you a ton of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, while I think here, Jason, is there anything else that you would want to that I haven't covered yet?
You've hit the main things, I think. Basically, code completion, refactoring, or not code completion. I'm sorry, code generation, refactoring.
Quick thing.
Now you can jump up to the namespace. I mean, to navigation and walk through some of that if you wanted to.
All right, we have Control-Shift-T, which if this ever pops up, just say use ReSharper command. Unless you really need to do SQL editor result as file, which I don't even know what that means. So you hit that, and then you have an enter file name. So I'm going to exit out of that because it remembered what I wanted. So Control-Shift-T brings up this enter file name where we can enter any file name.
Oh, nice.
Then there is Control-T, which is the same for types. So we can enter any type name. And it'll jump to the type. So yeah, I mean that's I use that a lot as well in combination with this guy.
Yeah.
Another thing is this will become. I'm going to use this a lot during the ASP.NET video series when we talk about inversion of control and when we move forward after the inversion of control, because I because the amount of code that you have to write to keep up with this is just annoying, and ReSharper can do it all for you. So watch this. So I'm going to write this class, and I'm going to give it a constructor. And I'm not going to go into IOC right now, but essentially the idea of IOC is that we pass its dependencies in through some means, and that means is usually a constructor, because this class literally depends on a file system service. It can't be used without the file system service, so we need to pass it into the constructor. So we have to write this particular piece of code anyway.
Which I'm surprised you wrote the constructor out instead of having it do it for you. But continue. My apologies.
First of all, it gives us suggestions for names: system service, file system service, or service. I'm just going to call it a service. And now watch this. Alt, enter, introduce an initialized field service, or create an initialized auto property service. So watch this. Introduce an initialized field. Bam.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And the cool thing is when you delete these guys, it'll basically, it'll assume that any assignment in the constructor is redundant, and it'll actually remove it for you when you delete it.
Wow.
And then now you see that this is grayed out. Basically, grayed out code in ReSharper, if you ever see grayed out code, that's code that should not be there.
Okay.
So let's have it delete it for us, which is the exact opposite of what I wanted to do. We wanted to remove parameter. But let's go ahead and introduce that parameter again. So it gives us a private read-only file service and assigns it. And this will just be, you have to be careful about that. If you type it fast enough, that apply change signature refactor will pop up before the introduce and initialize field. So you have to be careful about that guy.
Gotcha.
But you can just fly at this and.
It got locked on the screen again.
But yeah, so I use that guy a lot. One other thing, or we kind of already discussed this, but let's show you a more awesome example.
Ooh. More awesome.
It's always better, yeah.
So we're going to say, and before I do that, gray code. Gray code means you alt enter.
Okay.
And it goes away because it's unnecessary. Okay, so we're going to do this equals new, person. And this person, we're going to initialize this class that doesn't exist with some properties.
Okay.
And then we do control or alt enter, create class person, and we want them to be class. And then we can go ahead and put our cursor over that, and we can create a property last name.
Oh, wow.
It'll come up with that. It'll infer the type. So you see how I didn't type in string. It inferred that based off the usage. And when I hit enter, it's going to ask me if I want to make an auto property, a backing field, or a default member body. I'm going to go ahead and say auto property. And we can do the same here. Enter auto property. Or I meant auto property. And now it's not going to come up again, so I'm just going to have to do that myself. One other thing is if you don't want to use this auto property for some reason, you want to have a backing field, alt enter, enter, and you have it. And because we haven't actually added any custom code to our getter or setter, ReSharper is telling us this is redundant. Why isn't this an auto property? So let's have it convert it back for us.
Wow.
And it's also telling us that this is unnecessary, so let's go ahead and remove it. And that's just kind of floating there, not doing anything. And it's highlighted in some weird color. I don't know how that happened. And it won't. Okay, there we go.
So yeah, you don't even have to know how to program. ReSharper just does it all for you.
See, it's not about that.
I know.
First of all, ReSharper is a great learning tool.
I'm getting
especially
reprimanded.
a lot of the syntax of C# was actually taught to me through ReSharper because it said you could do this better with this syntax, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And ReSharper is a great teaching tool. Just go with the flow, have it, add it, do its thing, try to make it the most the best, cleanest code as possible, and then try to decide for yourself if you really prefer that way. Because like I said, sometimes it will create huge globs of code that you wouldn't want to normally write. The next thing about ReSharper is that it's not about not knowing how to code. It's about you know exactly what you want to do to your code, and just have all the grunt work be done for you.
I was being facetious.
Okay.
Was there anything else you want to show as a part of ReSharper?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. You can dig around in this menu to find a bunch of stuff, a bunch of key combos that you want to learn, because most of these things you could probably do, or not most of them, but some of them, it would actually take longer to go through this menu than it would be to actually do it yourself, in which case knowing these key combinations is an absolute must. We have bookmarks. That's another feature of ReSharper.
Bookmarks are cool.
Some fine stuff. It also has some unit test stuff, which is really cool. We'll probably get into that. The refactor menu you've already seen. So code issues and solution, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, just go through this to kind of learn about what it can do.
Okay.
And yeah.
I mean, again, this was just a quick look at the things you use most often, right?
Right.
Oh, I think I forgot something.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no worries. Actually, if you just thought of it, you haven't forgotten it yet.
There we go. I forgot about that guy. I just saw it and it reminded me in there. I haven't used him a lot, but Alt Insert. Have you ever used this very much, Jason?
By the way, yeah, that's what I just said a second ago. You could have had it write the constructor for you. That's what I meant.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I love that. That's again, it just kind of codes for you, which is nice.
All right. So, is there anything else, Jason, or are we good?
I can't think of anything right offhand. I think you've pretty much hit all of the major stuff that I use with it. I mean, ReSharper is worth every penny. I can't remember right off what it cost me. It was like $200 some odd dollars.
I reman it being somewhere around
$3.
Is it $3 now?
Is it $3? Maybe it was $3.
$200 to $300. There you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do a like a personal edition. Then they have more expensive company ones. Like
Personal edition is $199.
$190. Okay, and then
Academic is $49. So
yeah, that's true too. And then how much is it? Enterprise or just business? What do they call the big one?
commercial, which is $349, and there's also open source is free and Classroom is free.
Yeah, how awesome is that?
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's once you begin using it, whew, man, there's no way I'd want to give ReSharper up. Not me. All right, well, Nelson, thank you very much. Zach, any final questions?
No, I think hopefully this will be a big help to folks as they follow along with this series, also our ASP.NET series.
Yeah, for anyone who picks it up, it's worth every penny.
Right.
Just the time saved is incredible. All right, well, thanks a lot, Nelson, Zach, and that's going to conclude this episode of Nelson's Corner. Goodbye.